Whether you're a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, devoutly active, spiritually dry, rebellious, a fellow Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, etc., I hope the content here will help refine your spiritual discipline. What you can expect from this podcast is narration of my blogs, Q&As, conversations with fellow saints to include those of other faiths. Let us learn what it means to live spiritual danger close. How intermittent fasting can improve your spiritual resiliency. Would you look at that? Spiritual Danger Close is posting. Yes, I admit it's been a while since I posted, trying to finish up my degree of 2 classes every term. And then adding on top of it full-time work, I have had my hands full. I also picked up some fitness hobbies again and have been easing back into triathlon training. With that includes open water swimming on a somewhat weekly basis. Doing that led me to being inclined to go snorkeling, and next year I'll take diving lessons, God willing. For those familiar with Spiritual Danger Close and the types of discussions I have, this will be a little bit different. For those new, I appreciate your time and willingness to read or listen to what I have to say. I want to talk about spiritual resiliency, and more specifically, how fasting can be applied. For those who know me, they know that I've done intermittent fasting for several years. Lately, I have been asked by friends and family how they can start intermittent fasting, which leads us to this discussion: how intermittent fasting can improve your spiritual resiliency. Disclaimer: the topic of today deals with health and fitness. While I use some scientific papers and anecdotal experience, this is not to be construed as medical advice or recommendations. Before starting a new health or fitness routine, speak with your doctor. Additionally, this post contains no paid-for promotion and are strictly my recommendations. If any of the companies do not wish me to mention them, email me and I will promptly remove you from this post. Spiritual resiliency. Spirituality is widely interpreted. While often implying religion, it can also be separated from faith. Recently, I heard a chaplain describe spiritual resiliency as the driving force behind a person. I like that. While we often assume spiritual implies religion, one can be spiritual without being religious. While many may disagree, the two, while assumed to be intrinsically tied, they are not. Spirituality is an important factor that needs to be maintained within ourselves. However, in an increasing secular world, this domain of well-being is often overlooked. I argue that with an increase of mental health struggles, this is an invaluable tool. Spirituality leads to ritualism, which can then lead to something such as a cult or more formal religions. If something is religious in nature, it doesn't mean that it cannot be of value to us as individuals. One outward mechanism of spirituality in practice is fasting, which in many religions around the world is integral to each sect. Religious fasting. From Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Taoism, Jainism, and Hinduism, and many more, all have specific fasts. Arguably, Buddhism came to be from Siddhartha Gautama fasting experience in which he reaches enlightenment known as nirvana. In Islam, fasting is one of the 5 pillars of faith. During the month of Ramadan, some 2 billion practicing Muslims worldwide fast the whole month. Members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints likewise perform monthly fasts, foregoing 2 meals and donating the money to welfare assistance. From dusk to dawn, a Muslim completes a dry fast, which excludes food and water for the allotted time. Jesus Christ of Christian and Islamic Gospels also started his 3-year ministry after a 40-day fasting. From the text, we can assume it was strictly a no-food fast. So, with all these individuals around the world in various faiths, which practice fasting, is there any tangible benefit from it? Health benefits. More doctors are becoming aware of the many benefits fasting has to offer. I had a family member recently reach out to me and ask about it as their doctor told them to do it. While it doesn't seem very logical in nature, there are many positive benefits that intermittent fasting has to offer, such as resetting the circadian rhythm, ketogenic, cardiovascular health, blood pressure, diabetes, recovery, longevity. One thing that is very detrimental to your health is disruption to your sleep schedule. Disrupting sleep can disturb the circadian clock rhythm as well as metabolic-related cancers. Time-restricted feeding was shown in animal studies as a non-drug-induced way for resetting the circadian clock rhythm. When you start to forego eating, your body essentially has, quote, free time, end quote, to catch up on, quote, routine maintenance, end quote, if you will. When your body is constantly expending energy to digest the food every few hours, it can't get around to those other chores. One thing prolonged fasting does very well is it allows your body to enter into a ketogenic state. Quote, intermittent fasting introduces a ketogenic state as evidenced by the rise in beta hydroxybutyrate, BHB levels, in overweight individuals who fast. After 6 to 8 hours of fasting, ketone levels become detectable, which is a signal to switch from fat storage to fat utilization with decrease in low-density lipoproteins, LDL, and increase in high-density lipoproteins, HDL levels, end quote. Ketosis is when your body doesn't have enough source of carbohydrates. In the need to keep fueling cells, the body switches from a fat-burning mechanism, which is why keto diet focuses on a very fat-dense, moderate protein, and very low carbohydrate macronutrient meals. Health Harvard explains that for your body to enter into ketosis state, you need to consume less than 50 grams of carbohydrates per day. While you may shoot for 50 grams, you may find that it may still be too many carbohydrates. If you really want to know your tolerance, I recommend getting a testing kit and experimenting yourself. Pee strips will work just fine, but blood is more accurate. Some studies suggest that the brain may prefer ketones over glucose for energy, which for those who have done the ketogenic diet refer to it as the keto high. Many anecdotally report euphoria, focus, clarity, non-delayed thoughts, and many more. Ketosis also occurs with those who are prolonged fasting of times of 16 plus hours. While intermittent fasting can be done with a diet, mixing it with ketogenic diet is like a wrestling tag team. You are incinerating fat. I personally have done a variety of diets like vegan, vegetarian, pescatarian, omnivore, the standard American diet, carnivore, and keto, and most recently, the human appropriate diet. Intermittent fasting in nearly all those diets is what I ended up doing. Well, why? I find myself to be more satiated or full. On top of that, it is simpler just eating within a few hours. Not to mention your bowel movements become more regular and consistent. Intermittent fasting does play a role in many good health benefits, increases your body's reliance on utilizing fat for fuel and decreasing your body fat range. There are new and well-documented benefits such as cancer prevention, mental health, and treating type 2 diabetes. Possible cancer prevention. While there are not a lot of studies on the subject, those that had findings need to be studied further to grow the body of evidence. It looks optimistically that fasting can also be preventative of cancer cell development. One study found that fasting was, quote, associated with anti-cancer serum proteome response and upregulated several key regulatory proteins that play a key role in tumor suppression, DNA repair, insulin signaling, glucose, lipid metabolism, circadian clock, cytoskeletal remodeling, immune system, and cognitive function, end quote. The effects were only notable after 4 weeks of strict adherence to the fasting protocols. The study recommended further research into the subject. Besides possible cancer prevention, mental health has a strong role and treatment through intermittent fasting. Mental health. Depression can lead to a variety of physical and mental health effects on the human body, such as overall feelings, thoughts, and behaviors. Quote, according to the World Health Organization, more than 350 million individuals have depressive symptoms across the world, end quote. Over 10% of adult Korean women were more likely to attempt suicide, have ideation, drug and alcohol abuse. One study by Koo and Kim looked at how fitness, exercise, stretching could play a role in the treatment of depression and like symptoms. Quote, flexibility exercise played an important role in reducing and preventing stress and suicidal ideation in Korean adult women with depressive disorder. However, strength and exercise and walking did not have significant effects on stress and suicidal ideation in Korean adult women with a depressive disorder, end quote. While it was effective, it still could not prevent everything, but it was shown to be beneficial. Diabetes, quote, type 2 diabetes afflicts 34.2 million people in the United States and is associated with significant morbidity and mortality, end quote. Treatments around diabetes type 2 are centered around prevention. One way is looking for the markers of insulin resistance, as it is strongly correlated with the onset of type 2 diabetes, and starting a nutritional regimen to hopefully decrease the symptoms from fully developing. 16 studies showed that intermittent fasting is tolerable treatment for type 2 diabetes, as well lowering body mass index scores, body fat percentages, and, quote, significant reduction in fasting insulin levels, end quote. However, fasting may not be appropriate in some cases such as pregnancy, advanced age, immunodeficiency, hypoglycemic, or eating disorders. Again, speak to your doctor about your needs. Fasting protocols. Fasting a long time makes eating that much more rewarding. But the question is, how long should you fast for? Well, this is where some terminology is important to understand. While fasting window means how long you are going to go without food or water, second is the eating or feeding window, for how long you must eat until you fast again. There are various times as well nicknames for the fast. When you read a fast protocol, the first set of digits is the time without food. The second digit behind the colon is the eating window. 16-8 is also known as the coffee fast or beginner's fast. We all know someone who doesn't eat anything in the morning, may have a cup of coffee or an energy drink before they eat something around 11 or 12 that day. For people experimenting with fasting, this is by far the easiest one to achieve. And for some of you, you're already doing it. 18-6. This fasting protocol is just a step up and by far the most common fast tracked on the Zero app. The 2 hours does make a difference. You can notice it a week into the protocol. I find this protocol more flexible to my needs and allows my window to enjoy a lunch or dinner with friends or family for social events. If you work out in the afternoon, this fast is probably best. I would recommend your feeding window to start right after your workout would end. For instance, I typically work out from 2 in the afternoon to 3, and so I try to have my fast window in around 4 or 5 p.m. 24. This is the protocol referred to as a warrior's fast. This also coincides with the time like Ramadan feeding. You can space out one meal with a few snacks or just have 2 meals, one at the beginning and one at the end. 23-1. This is the 1 meal a day or OMAD fast. It takes a while to get used to, and once you're adapted, used to the time frame, it's quite nice. One downside is it's not very lenient for social events. I'm sorry, I can't, I'm fasting, is something you may end up saying. 36. I'm not aware if there's a nickname other than 36. I would not go beyond 36 hours in length for fasting for food or water restrictions. From some studies that are available, in my own experience, this is where you see a point of diminishing returns. The one benefit is this is a complete reset to your microbial gut. Your bowel movements will become disrupted, and you may experience diarrhea and keto and flu symptoms. Again, I can't stress this enough. You should be very cognizant of your electrolyte and fluid consumption. Water fasts. Besides Ramadan-style fasting for the exclusion of water for a period of 23 or less hours, going without water is fine. There are those who take it to the extreme and go several days, maybe weeks, without water. I recommend doing anything past 23 hours for a water fast. Water is crucial in the way your body functions and regulates itself. Just don't do it. Pro tips. Hydration is the key to make it through the fast. You will learn you probably don't drink enough water. If you feel yourself caving into the urge to eat, get some xylitol-based gum or try sparkling sugar-free water like LaCroix. If you absolutely can't stand that hunger and your stomach is growling, try to get some bone broth to tie you over. While it will bring you out of the fast, it is still not a solid food and easier on your body to break down. Plus, it's more hydration. I would also recommend easing into the fasting window with the bone broth as well. If you're on a non-meat diet, which I personally recommend against, I advise doing a vegetable broth instead. One thing that intermittent fasting and keto have in common is flu-like symptoms, known as keto flu. A simple fix is adding an electrolyte to your diet, which again, bone broth is nature's electrolyte drink. If it doesn't go away, then you probably should contact your doctor as you might have a cold or virus or something entirely. Again, recall my disclaimer. Zero app. I have used this app since its launch in the beta testing and have been using it. It's been very great to use. As you see, I have been using it and it's been super helpful in reminders. As well, rewarding seeing how long you've gone without food. The new version of the app includes a lot of features that didn't exist when I first got it. It is very user-friendly and you can navigate very easily through its 4 primary screens. It now has loads of additional features such as weight management, correlation, glucose tracking, and many more. Some features are available only through the Pro version, which for the price is not that bad. I don't have the Pro version since I'm not interested in those additional metrics, but I do use the app. Kinobody. If you search anything fitness related, you're bound to come across Kinobody. Kinobody is Greg O'Gallagher's intermittent fasting minimalist program. At first, I was put off by his personality, and almost anything I was doing had his ad played in the background banner of the webpage. Then, after I sabotaged myself through a dirty bulking, I caved and said, screw it! Kinobody is why I started intermittent fasting. To my astonishment, it worked. I was consistently losing weight and slowly gaining strength. I purchased all his programs minus the personal coaching and the newer movie star program. Each one of his programs pairs a fasting protocol window to a specific regimen of calisthenics, weight training, and low-intensity training. I was able to improve my personal weight lifts and, as Greg says, melt off the fat. The key benefit to the minimalist weight training routine is you become more satiated and less likely to end up overeating your daily caloric intake. I recommend his programs as well as his energy drink mix, Keno Octane. Meal planning. This one is the one I've been personally asked on, and so I'll try to discuss it a little. You can meal plan on this way of eating and do just fine, or you can just wing it. But you may see slower returns and benefits for the fasting protocols. Meal planning offers benefits such as weight loss from meal planning. While some derogatorily refer to meal planning as strategic leftover foods, it is much more than that. If you don't feel like trying fasting, I would recommend giving meal planning a try first. I think the hardest part is sticking to the meal plan and not eating something that you didn't prepare before. While it does take time getting used to, it can become a money saver as well. If you want to know the Keno body macronutrient ratios or meals, I advise you to look at those programs. I will not be discussing those here. I personally run a high fat oriented ratio of 45% fat, 30% protein, and 25% carbohydrates at the moment. I feel fuller with this ratio and less ravenous at the end of my fasting window. Something else that you can do is carb cycling, where you have days of low carbohydrates and then days of high carbohydrates. For carbohydrates cycling, you should stick below the 20% range, but this is where you knowing your body comes into play. You must know your body. Conclusion. As I discussed, there are many benefits and methods to go about fasting. The study of the subject is growing in medicine and research communities, and I personally see a fasting specialist certification coming soon. As you fast, you can see how it drives you to a mindfulness in the presence of the moment, having a gratitude for the food and water that you do get, and for many religions, fasting is an integral part of worship and becoming better than who you previously were. You also gain a greater self-discipline in abstaining from food and water. You can also feel renewed vigor, determination that can carry forward into other aspects of your life. If you notice your spiritual resiliency improving by fasting, I would like to hear you discuss it. Recommended sources. In the blog post, I'll have 4 recommended sources that if you were to talk to me personally, that I would share with you. The first one is, again, Keno Body. Without his program, I probably would not have come across intermittent fasting as fast as I did, and I've used it on and off, and I am currently doing a specialized Keno Body program focused around triathlon training with strength training days. I am currently using and tracking right now on the Zero Fast app. It is amazing. It sends you reminders. It lets you know, hey, you have a fasting window. And for those that may be interested in the additional tracking methods, I highly recommend it. Plus, when they added the ability to track weight and glucose, it's really an all-in-one app that I was using a couple different apps for. Now it's all in one place. The next two are two doctors or practitioners that post frequently on YouTube. I should add a third one now that I think about it. The first is Dr. Ken Berry. He's personally used keto and intermittent fasting to help reverse some of his type 2 diabetes issues and is very knowledgeable on the subject. He's continuing to study, look at research, and has been a part of research for many of the things that he does discuss. Another similar doctor, I believe he's a trained chiropractor. He is Dr. Eric Berg, and he posts a lot of content and has been seen on shows that you see typically in the morning and has been on YouTube for a very long time. and he has a lot of windows breaking down a little bit more of the science of how fasting works. To include foods you should or should not include, or if you have this allergy intolerance, something else you should eat, or how you should eat, or knowing a little bit more about that. The last one I want to add is Dr. Paul Saldino. He's the one who's doing he started doing carnivore diet, and now he's doing this human appropriate diet. And a lot of his dieting techniques I've incorporated, and I felt their benefits from it. So using this mixture, these are the recommended sources that if you were to ask me, I would share with you. Give them a check out. That is what I have to say on the subject. If you have done intermittent fasting, I would like to hear from you, see how your experience is doing. If you have any pro tips that I missed out, please let me know. The fasting community has grown quite large, and there's many who do it on a frequent basis. I would say one of the hardest things about doing the program is peer pressure. Many people want to just eat whenever, and they don't think about that, right? I'm going to eat when I eat. And often when it comes to, hey, do you want to go out to eat? You're going to have to get used to saying, I'm sorry, I can't. I'm in my fasting window. Now, if you have some time beforehand and you know you're going to be around some people, you can schedule your fasting window to allow that. Something else that you can do is you can do partial intermittent fasting or specific days throughout the week. You can do starting off with one day of the week where you do intermittent fasting, or you can do on and off again, where it's every other day you do intermittent fasting, and the days in between you are eating normally. You really can tailor this to how you and your situation need, and that's what I have found very enjoyable with it. It does take getting used to for those who do cardio. I prefer doing cardio fasted. Just a lot less going on in your stomach. You're a lot lighter. You're not being drugged down. I would also recommend against jumping into everything and doing it all at the same time. And by that, I mean, like say you're going to start meal planning, intermittent fasting, and you're going to be changing your diet to a keto-based diet. Don't do all three at the same time. Slowly introduce one of the three. When you've mastered one, add the other. Because if there's something wrong, you're not going to be able to know what it is or what's causing the problem. Second, adding all that is just additional stress. Now, if you have the willpower and the fortitude to do that, go ahead. You'll dominate the diet anyway. I just see a lot of people giving up on the diet because it becomes overwhelming at first. Oh, I can't eat. I'm so hungry all the time. The diet's changing, especially if you start trying to go ketogenic on top of intermittent fasting. Now, you can do the two separately. I didn't discuss that very well, but you can do the two separately and do just fine. However, like I mentioned, if you do them together, it's like double the effect. It's very powerful, and you can drop weight rapidly, which may not be very good for your body. Again, you got to talk to your doctor or ask your doctor for recommendation to a nutritionist that can help you, right? Some people don't do as good on certain diets as the other, and that's where I think Dr. Paul Saldino's human appropriate diet comes in, of figuring out that there's a lot of foods that are toxic to the human body. Like it or not, plants are living things that have mechanisms inside to prevent things from eating them. Humanity, through our industrious labors, have changed those and cultivated and grown those plants in specific ways. But a lot of plants can have a lot of effects on your body because they have plant toxins, because the plant can't go anywhere. It can't run away from a predator. So how does it defend itself? It does that through toxins. So some people are more tolerant than others to other things. Something I found out with a lot of sadness, and I have to put some time in between it, is I'm pretty allergic to tomatoes. I have a lot of inflammation, joint swelling or whatever, so I can't have tomatoes all the time. I love tomatoes. I grew up on tomatoes, tomato-based foods, pastas, salads, whatever it is, right? Tomatoes taste good. I like the way tomatoes taste. A fresh slice cut of tomato with some cracked sea salt is delicious little snack. But I start feeling it. My gut feels bad. There's a lot of foods that you can figure out that you probably shouldn't eat or you don't do as well on. That's what something else that intermittent fasting offers you, is that ability to test out which foods your body doesn't respond well to and which ones it does respond well to. I have found that through everything I've done, having a high fat diet, I do better. It takes a while to become what's called fat adapted, to where your body actually prefers fats over carbohydrates, especially if you're doing any sort of cardio based long distance endurance training. It can take a while to get used to, but for me, I don't have any problems with it. It's become one of those things where I've just gotten used to it, and I know if I'm going to go on a long bike ride, I may have to change my fasting window or forgo it altogether, or be strategic about what sort of snacks I take along with me, such as having, a tube of peanut butter in a cycling pouch instead of a pure thing of sugar, right? So it's becoming smart about that. Also, learning to use electrolytes. I think a lot of people don't get enough electrolytes. If you've had a headache, you probably have an imbalance of electrolytes. Don't overdo it. I would stay away from Gatorade, Powerade, anything in that sugar-based nature. It's just very, very high in sugar, and most of the time it's very poor composition of actual electrolyte mix. There's a lot better third-party products that you can get. And again, bone broth is nature's electrolyte. There's so many good things that come in bone broth. I love drinking bone broth, and there's a lot of stuff you can do, like dehydrated bone broth packets that you can take with you, so you're not lugging around a hot thermos or whatever for the bone broth, and you can make it when you can. So those are the big things. Recommended for meal prepping, air fryers, that kind of thing, just to make sure that when you are going through to make your food for the week, you do so in a quick and efficient manner. Plus, it's nice not having to worry about making dinner throughout the week. So those are just some of the things I've thought about after the fact. If there's anything else that you would like specifics on, I am more than welcome to chat. Please let me know. And on a personal note, I have felt a lot of benefits in a secular spiritual mind, as well as in a religious-minded spiritual resiliency. I feel that doing it daily, I'm more thankful and appreciative of the things I have, and the amount of discipline that it's allowed me to practice has been very beneficial, especially the whole schedule thing. If you're a person who can't stick to a schedule, intermittent fasting will do that. You will know exactly. At 9 p.m., I will not eat anything else, and I don't get to eat until 11, 12, or 2, or 4, or whatever you're eating. You'll stick to a schedule, and it keeps you there. There's a lot of self-discipline that comes from it. Plus, I think there's something to be said. Religions don't really agree on things, right? You stick a bunch of people from different religions in a room, and they'll argue all day long about who's right and who's wrong. But there's something interesting in the fact that you see a lot of these major world religions all agree that fasting is important. So there's something to be said in that. When all these people who can't agree on anything can agree on one thing, that's something I think is important that we can look at. So those are my thoughts on how intermittent fasting can improve your spiritual resiliency. Again, I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day. Spiritual Danger close out.